Welcome to Wales Tech Week 2021. Thank you to our partners. Enjoy the session.
Well, good morning. Thank you ever so much for joining me on this session. We're going to be talking this morning about going over budget on a website project, and the title of this is Top Tips to Write the Ultimate Website Brief That Your Agency Will Love. So I'm going to be presenting that to you this morning, but just before we get going, just a few practical points. So we are recording today's session, so we'll share with you a copy of the recording and the slide deck afterwards. So if you're there busy making notes, don't feel you have to. Feel free just to grab a cup of tea and listen, and we'll send you over the slide deck. Please, throughout the session, just submit questions on the chat, and I'll do my very best to answer them towards the end. Important to note as well, I'll be covering this topic broadly today. I appreciate that there's going to be businesses and organizations of all shapes and sizes here today. So some of this might be relevant to you and some of it might not be, but hopefully everyone can take something away from today's session. And then just finally, please get involved on social using the hashtags on the screen. It'd be great to get your feedback on this session and get your thoughts and opinions. So what we're going to cover today, over the next kind of 40 minutes or so, I'm going to cover the why, who, and how. I'm going to look at the specific elements that I think you should include in a website brief, paying particular attention to how to put that brief in front of the most suitable agencies, and how to allow agencies to self-qualify themselves. So they're the kind of two angles that I'm going to come from. I'm then going to share my website template with you, my website brief template, which will give you everything you need to write that brief yourself, and then we'll dive into your questions. So who am I? I'm Will. I'm the founder and director of an agency called WebBox. This stuff really excites me, right? Because for the last over 12 years now, I've been working with organizations of all shapes and sizes, from startups all the way through to FTSE 100 organizations and recognizable brands, to help them define what they're looking for from their website or web application, and helping them actually put that on paper to define their requirements in a brief, and then to deliver those projects. So this kind of stuff really excites me. Sounds really geeky, but it honestly does. So look, before that's enough about me. Before we get into it, let me just touch on the why, who, and how. Okay, so first of all, why write a brief? Okay, because a lot of people might just skip this step and think it's pointless. Okay, well, I feel it's obvious, right? You need to outline your requirements of what you're looking for, so that a provider could look over that and actually see if they can supply it. Okay. So you might want to start this process by putting a brief together. Alternatively, you might work alongside an agency who can also help you put this kind of brief, or some people call it a scope of work, together. The second reason why I think it's really important to do this is to prevent a project from going over budget. So we recently ran a survey with a number of our clients and prospects and people in our network and connections. So different kind of audience pools, and we just asked them their experience as to with previous providers, have they experienced a project which has gone over budget or even over time. And the vast majority of them, I think it was 67%, said that actually they have experienced the project go over time and over budget. Now, that didn't surprise me, but at the same time, I think that there's a lot we can do to prevent that from happening. And one of the things that we can do is to start this project with a really solid brief. The next reason why I think you should put this brief together is it allows agencies to self-qualify themselves. Now, it's going to be a good use of your time if you're discussing the project in detail with several agencies, and then kind of all of a sudden you realise that actually you're discussing the project with the wrong agencies because maybe they can't service your needs or what have you. So it's not a good use of your time. So it's best to include things within the brief to help an agency to opt in or opt out of whether they pitch for that project. And I'll discuss ways that you can do that later on. And also, I always find it's useful to put this brief together, because what you'll probably find is agencies will come back to you with ideas and suggestions that you might not have thought of. So it just allows for the creative process to take place in quite a natural way. So it'd be great to kind of get those ideas brought to the table from those outside of your organization. Now, who should write the brief? Okay, so first of all, not the procurement department. Time and time again, we've seen that happen where the procurement department of an organization will write this brief, and with all due respect, they know what they're looking for, and they understand the kind of practical elements, but they might not understand the nitty gritty. And what happens in those instances is they give a very high level brief, which probably focuses more on deliverables, timescales, budgets, and things like that, and doesn't really get to the heart of the problems which the web project is going to solve and its objectives and things like that. So we, I remember it vividly, won a public sector project many years back, and we went through a very long tender process for that. And we got into the room with a project team, and we were really excited to start. And we kind of had really read and understood the brief. And we got in front of the project team, and they said, "Great. What was being written was really simply just for procurement purposes. Let's rip it up and start again." Now, we're happy to do that. It's super flexible, but obviously it just kind of makes a mockery of that whole kind of procurement process. So look, in terms of writing this brief, I'm a big believer in the project team need to write the brief. Now, whether that is in your organization, a project sponsor or project manager, or whether it's a marketing manager, whoever that might be in your particular business, I think it's that person who is going to steer the project and spearhead it. They need to be in the driving seat of this whole process. But importantly, we always recommend that you get the buy-in and approval of your senior leadership team or board, depending on your structure. And then the reason for that is there's no point going out to agencies with a brief that hasn't been given the green light internally. So you need to have that before doing that. So that's who should write the brief. And then just finally in this section, how to position the brief. And I think this is really something which a lot of people get wrong or might not even consider when writing a brief. So ultimately, you want to get the attention of the most suitable providers and agencies and suppliers. So how do you do that? You need to make sure that the language used within your brief will ultimately spark the interest of that group. So you might say in some instances that you're looking for an agency with experience in a particular sector or a particular type of web project or what have you. Now, I'm going to caveat that with that might not always be the best way to do it. Sometimes when we've worked on projects that we've never done anything else in that sector before, we've been able to bring really creative ideas that no one else thinks about. But look, some people go down that route. It also then, in terms of positioning the brief, you want to allow agencies to self-qualify themselves. Okay, so you don't want to put this brief in front of all agencies that just say yes, yes, yes all the time. You want to make sure that it's really clear who you're looking to partner with, so that the agency can hopefully come back and say, actually, no, maybe this project isn't for us. So how do you do that? So you might want to kind of say that you're looking for an agency that specializes in a particular type of tech or web language or that kind of CMS, something like that. You might also put things in the brief about kind of the project has to be completed by a particular date. And those things will allow agencies to self-qualify themselves, because if they don't work with that tech or that CMS or that framework, or they can't complete it by a particular date, then hopefully, one would hope that the agency would be able to say, actually, no, it's not a project for us, if those are the requirements. But all that being said, I'm a big believer in allowing the agency a little bit of creative freedom. Okay, so you want to allow the agency to not be bound by so much red tape within your brief that they can't be creative. Okay, so it's getting that balance between being prescriptive in terms of what you are looking for, and the type of partner that you're looking to partner with, coupled with that bit of space, that breathing room within the brief to allow the agency to be creative. Okay, so let's get into it. What should we include within this document that we're going to pass out to a number of different agencies? So first of all, start with your introduction. Okay, now tell us a little bit about yourself and the business. Share your values with us. Okay, what makes you unique? Give us a little bit about your USPs, and then more formal stuff in terms of maybe the kind of size and structure of your business. Now, a couple of things here. Don't necessarily just copy the About Us page on your website and think, oh, that tells everyone everything they need to know about the business. From our point of view, we love to really get to know our clients. What makes you tick? What makes you unique? How long have you been doing this? What is your position and proposition within the market? The other thing that we love to know is, what do you stand for? So at WebBox, we're really clear in terms of what we stand for. What are our values? What makes us tick? How do we do business? What are our kind of business ethics, I like to call them? And we want to make sure that they align with our clients. So, one of our values is that we're collaboratively creative. It means that, look, we're going to bring loads of creative ideas to the table, but we want to bring you on that journey, and we want to do that collaboratively. So if you're looking for an agency to totally spearhead all the creativity and, kind of you don't want any input, then maybe there's another agency which is better suited for you. But we like to kind of very much lean upon our clients' sector experience, and then bring our creative ideas to the table and marry the two to deliver the best end result. So these things are important, because ultimately, I always say, people buy people, and businesses buy businesses. And I think it's really important that both parties get to know each other right at day one to make sure that there's a good fit and we can build a long-term partnership. Second thing is, include your target audience or audiences within the brief. So a website can't be all things to all men. So by defining your target audience will just help agencies to consider how best to position the website and consider the UX for that particular audience. Now, your website might have multiple audiences, and it's just important for an agency to be aware of that, because it would have a direct impact on the user experience and the sitemap and everything else which goes alongside it. So it's good to include that within the brief. So talk about your key markets, your service offering, which needs to be kind of at the forefront of the website. So if I put this into a practical example, you might have on offer 10 different services or 50 different products, but maybe 4 of them, of the services, and maybe 10 of the products is really, where your revenue is coming from. They're the kind of key players. So talk to us about that, and how your audience responds to those, so that we can best position you and consider the user experience of those services as we build the website. So the next point is, just give us a quick bit of information about the current website. Okay, so if you've got lots of different websites within your group, first and foremost, tell us the web address that this website project is going to replace. or kind of be hosted on. And then talk to us about what your pain points are with the current website. So it might be that it's really cumbersome to use or cumbersome to update from the CMS. It might even be that you don't have a CMS or the website is not mobile compatible. These are the kind of things that we want to understand so that with the new website project, we can really get to grips with what we need to do to overcome those. But also you might like particular things about it. So talk to us about what you like so that we might want to consider keeping those elements within the web project. Next point to include is your objectives. I'm a really big believer in making sure that a web project doesn't just come and go and it's not kind of really reviewed or benchmarked against your objectives and KPIs. It's easy to say, right, we've delivered a website, great, off you go, you know, and an agency moves on to the next web project. We like to take a little bit of a different approach there. So it's really helpful if you could define your objectives within the brief. What are you trying to achieve by going through this project? And then also how you're going to measure the success of the project. So for example, you might have staff internally who input a lot of data manually. So one of the objectives might be to reduce the amount of data which people have to enter manually. And we could even put a number to that. So we could say, like, from a percentage point of view, we want to reduce their data entry time by 10 or 20%. The more specific you can be, the better, because I think in this instance, it allows an agency to really get under the skin of what we're trying to achieve with this web project and really look at ways as how we can achieve those objectives. So that's a really important one, because I think it's really good once the project's completed to look back and ensure that we have met those objectives and that there's a tangible benefit to the business or organization once it's been completed. Okay, so probably we're at the heart of the website brief document now. Okay, so this is all about the features of the website. So ultimately, this comes down to what do you want the website to do, and how will it function, and what kind of features should be on the website. So at a high level, this could be things like that you need the ability to buy products and categorize products, or list your services. You might want a blog, you might want case studies, you might want profiles about your team and your board, and things like that. All of these things need to be kind of put down. And at this stage, if it's easier for you, feel free just to bullet point this kind of information. But it's helpful for an agency to understand the functionality that you're looking for. Now, every agency is different, so we like to take a consultative and collaborative approach to defining your requirements. So ultimately, what I mean by that is, if you want to kind of start this process and then we'll kind of come alongside you and help you kind of add the meat to the bone, then that's kind of something we're happy to do. And I know other agencies do the same as well. So look, we're not expecting you to be the web expert, but you, I'm sure, will have a good idea as to what the website should do and how it should function. So maybe start off with a basic list, which we can then kind of build upon. Because look, when we get into the nitty gritty, if you're saying to us, you want a blog, we're going to ask you lots of questions about how that blog should function, how you want people to interact with it. Can people subscribe to new blog posts coming out? Do you want an RSS feed off the back of it? Do you want the blog posts to be filtered or kind of searched by? Look, there's going to be loads of questions which come, but let's just start with the kind of high level points that you're looking for a blog, and we can take it from there. Okay, next thing is from an integration point of view, does the website need to integrate with any third parties? So obviously, it's very popular for websites to integrate with a CRM system. So you might say we use HubSpot or Salesforce or something like that, and you might want the website to feed information into your CRM automatically to reduce manual data entry time. So that's kind of a popular one. You might also say we want the website to integrate with platforms like Google Analytics and Hotjar to allow us to track visitors and what they do on the website. Again, another popular one that we see time and time again. And then I guess for the more complicated projects, you might say that we want to integrate with accounts platforms, stock management systems, courier systems, warehousing, management systems, you name it. We've seen it all, but list these things in the brief because it'd be really good to understand what the website needs to integrate with. And then again, we can deep dive into how that integration should work. Coupled with that is whether there needs to be automation. So, you might say that actually the connection between the two platforms could be triggered by a button that we could put within the CMS. You might want that to be something which triggers automatically, maybe twice a day. Alternatively, you might want a live integration through an API. So there's different options. So talk to us just about kind of how you want to automate the connection between these third parties and whether we can also automate other things to reduce manual processes within your organization. Okay, so another important part of any web project is the website's content. So let's start at the high level. You could initially say that we're looking to create a website which has 20 pages, and these pages, we see these pages being home, about us, services, etc. When we get into the nitty-gritty, we might then kind of ask you questions such as, are you going to write the content, or would you like the agency to write the content? Secondly, are you going to put the information into the content management system, or should we enter that for you to get you up and running a little bit quicker? Do you require a CMS training session? All those kind of things to get under the skin as to what you're looking for. But initially, that list of pages will be really helpful. Now, again, you might not know at this stage, and that's fine. So maybe just put within the brief that we'd like to work with the agency to, refine our current sitemap or develop a new sitemap based on a new direction that you're taking the organization in. So really important to kind of answer those questions. Now, for some organizations as well, you might need the content translated. So another thing to kind of consider is the time within the project plan to allow for translation to happen and for the translated content to be put into the CMS as well. Okay, moving on. So the timeline. So this is a really important part of the brief, and it also should allow agencies to self-qualify themselves as well. So let's use two extremes. Some businesses and organizations might have no deadline for the project and are happy for the agency to recommend what would be a reasonable timescale. On the other hand, you might have a really, closed and fixed date that the website needs to be live by, and that's a non-negotiable, has to be live by that date because of X, Y, and Z, business priorities and PR activity going on and what have you. Now, it's really important to kind of just state where you are with that in the brief, because, for example, we're in June now. If you needed the website live by July, August, September, a lot of agencies might just say, really sorry, but we just can't deliver it by then. And obviously that would start a conversation to either allow them to qualify themselves out or to move that date. So really important to kind of mention these things up front so that we can all start on the right foot. Alternatively, you might just say, look, I'm really open to suggestions, and then the agency could put a proposed project plan to you. Okay, so that's the timeline. My next part is my poker face question. I love this image, it's absolutely great. So, do you know what? A lot of agencies will ask for the budget of the project. So, before they ask, you might just want to include it within your brief. So you might going to ask, why have I included the poker picture? Because it's a little bit of an odd one. Okay, so I think this is a classic where whenever anyone talks about money and budget, everyone just puts their poker face on. Maybe clients might say we haven't got a budget, even though they do under the hood, or they might say a lower figure than the real figure, or whatever it might be. And look, we all do it in life, so don't worry about it. But you might ask yourself, why is the agency asking us this question? And I just wanted to give you like a real response from an agency owner as to why we might ask that. So any experienced agency will know what can be delivered within a particular budget, and this will likely dictate what is proposed to you in your proposal. So, for example, working with a higher budget allows us to spend more time on user experience design, or workshops, or digital marketing campaign to make some noise about the website once it's live, etc., etc. There's lots more that we can include if the budget is there. Now, if the budget is lower, we might need to reduce the scope of work so that we can deliver a minimum viable product, an MVP, within your budget. Or we might actually just say what you're looking for simply cannot be achieved within that budget. So specifying your budget, or even a broad range, however vague that might be, is just the best way to start your relationship with an agency, because it should, kind of set everything off on the right foot, and you should receive a proposal then, which is more in keeping with your budget expectations. Now, I'm going to caveat that with, there are ways, of course, that maybe some agencies might want to take advantage of that. So it's just important that you're working and partnering with agencies that are transparent, and would want the best for you within that budget. But look, it's a really important thing to put in, and I'm a big believer in making sure that that's part of your brief from day one. Okay, the next part is talking to us about your competitors within the sector. You might say to me at this point, Will, we're kind of over halfway through the presentation, and your images are getting even odder, right? So I appreciate that this image of two kids eating grapes is really odd. I've chosen it because I've got two kids. They're 2 and 4. Not these particular kids, of course. And they deem themselves as competitors, right? Whatever one has got, the other one wants the other one. Okay, so they are their own competitors. So that's the kind of tangent link to this. So look, talk to us about who your competitors are. Who are the main players within the sector? Who should we be looking at when we're doing our research around this project? Also, what are they doing that you're not? What are your USPs? How do you stand out from the crowd? Those kind of things can be mentioned at this part in the brief. And then also, of those websites, and potentially websites outside of your sector too, what do you like and what do you not like? So you might look at an example website and say, I like the way that they've done their kind of header section, or the way they do their navigation, or their kind of hero video, whatever it might be. It's good to know what you like and what you don't like, so that we can maybe take inspiration from that throughout the design phase. So coming now into, I guess, some more practical points. So the first is, in terms of running this project, who are the points of contact? So internally, you might have a large number of stakeholders, but really kind of, you're going to work alongside an agency, and maybe 1 or 2 people will be the day-to-day point of contact. So it's good to know, who will be the point of contact from your side, but also coupled with that, who will be the decision maker. So it might be that the buck stops with the project manager, but it might be the project manager needs to go to a head of department, for example, to get sign off, or go to C-suite, or whatever it might be. So it's really good to know that up front, so that we get an idea as to how your processes will work. Now, on the flip side, it's good for you to ask the agency who your point of contact will be. So on the agency side, they might have a project manager, or an account manager, or designer, or whatever it might be, who will be your day-to-day point of contact. And it's good just for you to know that, so you know who you'll be dealing with if you do choose that agency for the project. The next part is the process in which you're going to take. So some organizations will have this nailed down to to the finest detail, and others might not. I would really encourage you to kind of give this some consideration and to put that detail into your brief, because it helps agencies understand the timescales that you're working towards. So what does this mean practically? It means that you might give us a list of different dates in terms of when you want the proposal returned to you by, when you're looking to shortlist agencies by, when potentially a presentation might take place, all the way through to when you're hoping to choose an agency and to start the project. Now that's important because if that process is going to take you 3 months internally to work through, then that's going to affect the project plan and other things. So it's important to kind of just have that transparency up front so that we know when the commencement date is likely to be. Okay, I think this is my final point then in terms of what you should include within the brief. So once you've given all of this information to an agency, which I'm sure will just be the starting point of the conversation, it's important to outline within your brief what you want the agency to come back to you with, okay? Now, hopefully it's not as much as what this guy is holding with 2 large boxes. But for example, you might say that we'd like to receive a proposal from the agency, which includes 3 case studies and 3 testimonials, okay? That could be one option. Now, other companies and organizations might actually say that you want some design concepts as part of this process. And I'd always just encourage you to be upfront about whether you'd like to see design concepts or not from day one, because some agencies might not pitch for the project if you're going to require them to put design time into this upfront. And others might be happy to do that. So again, it's another qualification criteria that some agencies will use. But again, it's a good talking point for you to have a conversation with that agency. So just list this at the end of your brief, and then the agency knows what they've got to put together, how long they've got to put it together, and we can go from there. Okay. So that is everything that I think with kind of doing, from doing this over 12 years, should be within a website brief. And I think if you put that together in a document and submit it to a number of agencies, you will find that you're starting off on the right foot. You're allowing agencies to self-qualify themselves and to have further conversations to get down to the nitty-gritty, and it will just be a much better process. And in theory, this is definitely one of the things which I'd strongly advise you do, so that the project doesn't go over budget, over the timescale as well, because you've been able to define what you're looking for in enough detail up front. So as part of today, as part of being here on this session for Wales Tech Week, what I've done is I've put together a template which puts all of this information into one PDF and allows you to kind of almost fill in the blanks. So look, no one leaves without, no one leaves empty-handed, as they say. I'm going to be sharing this template with you after this session so that you can have a look over that PDF. And if you want to use it, please feel free to use that template. All you need to do is simply populate the blank areas, and you can use that then to send out to an agency if you want, okay? So that will be with you shortly alongside the slide deck that I've used today. Also, if you're looking for any help, and I'm very happy to kind of give that kind of in a kind of confidential but impartial way, then please just drop me an email. And I say this genuinely, even if it's a project that we couldn't undertake, I'm more than happy to look over your brief and to make sure that you've included the key parts within it so that you can send it off to relevant agencies. So if you just want a bit of a sounding board, then please feel free to send it to me. My email address is there on screen. So I'm going to leave some time now for some questions. I think we've only got probably 5 minutes or so for some questions. So let me have a little look in the chat and let's see if I can answer a few of these for you. just coming from Carol. Thank you, Carol, for sharing that. Much appreciated. Okay, if you've got any questions or comments, please feel free to leave them in the comment section. I'm more than happy to answer those now. I'll keep an eye on it just for another minute. Okay, great. Well, hopefully today's session has given you enough information that it's self-explanatory. But look, if there are any questions, please feel free to drop me an email. So like I've said, I'll pop this template across to you shortly. Hopefully it gives you everything you need and more to start your web project. And I hope and wish you the very best with it. So yeah, look, thank you so much for listening. I really appreciate your time this morning. And please feel free to connect with us on social or LinkedIn. I'd be more than happy to chat.
Thank you for watching. Rewatch all of our sessions online. Thank you to our partners.